So before we move on to the next topic, which is on determining how to fix the threshold eta, how to decide what should be eta when the probability of occurrence of the event, probability of occurrence of the hypothesis is not known. So before we move on to that, we need to quickly discuss something regarding the earlier decision rule. Now, the earlier decision rule, which we discussed, wherein we took a decision by comparing a certain left-hand side with a threshold eta, which is given by C10 minus C00 divided by C01 minus C11 into P0 by P1. So we compare the likelihood ratio with this threshold, and depending on if it is more or less than this, we take a decision that H1 or H0 respectively was the hypothesis. And this side you have the likelihood ratio, which is defined as the ratio of the density functions. So this is how it is, and you know how the capital lambda r is defined. It is the ratio of the conditional density functions. Now this decision rule, a decision rule based on this principle, is called as the Bayes criterion. So we arrive at this decision rule, and this decision rule is called as the one based on the Bayes criterion, BAYES, the Bayes criterion, because if you go through the derivation of this decision rule, if you go through the development of this decision rule, you will see that the Bayes theorem is used here. Okay, now having understood that, let's say that in a particular scenario, if C00 is equal to C11 is equal to 0, and that is the cost for the correct decision is 0, that is cost you are incurring for a correct decision is 0, and C01 is equal to C10 equal to 1, that is the cost for a wrong decision is the same and it is 1. Now this is usually the case in a binary digital communication system. In this case, such situations, you know that eta will be P0 by P1 and the risk will be equal to, so if you substitute these values in the risk that we derived earlier, you see that the risk will be equal to P0 integration of PR H0 in the region Z1, that is declaration of H1 plus P1 Z0 PR H1, that is integration over Z0, correspond to declaration of H0, and these two are error events, as you know, because this is actually a situation where H0 was the true hypothesis, but you end up landing in the region for Z1. This calculates the probability of that. Similarly, this calculates the probability of the receiver or your decision rule deciding that H0 was the true hypothesis when actually H1 was indeed the true hypothesis. And P0 and P1 are the probabilities of hypothesis H0 being true and H1 being true respectively. And this we can now write as P0 PF, where PF is this, which is the probability of a false alarm, because this is a false alarm. Because when H0 is the true hypothesis, we declare H1 is the true hypothesis because we land in the region for H1. The probability of landing in the region reserved for H1 in the observation space when H0 is the true hypothesis. So that becomes the probability of a false alarm plus P1 into probability of a miss, because this is a miss. When H1 is the true hypothesis, you are calculating the probability of landing in the region reserved for H0 in the observation space. So this is the cost now, the risk involved. This is the average cost, that is the risk. And this now becomes the probability of error. Because whether it is PF or PM, it indicates an error. PF is false alarm, but it's basically an error where you declare H1 is the true hypothesis when H0 was the actual true hypothesis, so you have made an error. This is the probability of making that type of error. And PM is the probability of making an error wherein you declare H0 is the true hypothesis when actually H1 is the true hypothesis. And when you average them out, when you average these errors, when you take an average of these errors, by multiplying them individually by the probability of H0 being true and H1 being true, and then adding them up, you get the average probability of error. So now the decision rule here is set in such a way that the risk is minimum, because that is how we arrived at this decision rule. You are minimizing the risk, which means that here since this is a development from this is nothing but the same expressed in a different way. The minimum risk that you are encountering here is the same as the probability of error, which is the minimum. Because the risk is minimum, probability of error that you can achieve is minimum. If you set any other threshold, the probability of error will be more than this. So minimum, which means that a receiver or any decision rule which is based on the Bayes criterion is called as a minimum probability of error receiver. So as I said, this decision rule is developed based on minimizing the risk, and as you saw here, risk is the same as probability of error when these are the conditions. And since this is based on minimizing the risk, we have minimized the probability of error. Hence, receiver which stage this is for minimum probability of error receiver. But we have to keep in mind a minimum probability of receiver can be designed only if we have knowledge of called as the probable occurrence hypothesis. Otherwise, we will not be able to identify which is optimum here. So now we move on to discuss a method wherein we can arrive at, or wherein we can take best possible decisions when P0 and P1. Of course, in the case of binary hypothesis, if you don't know any one of these, you don't know the other also. And if you know any one of these, you know the other. So wherein P0 and P1 are not known, we will discuss one such method now. So we now discuss the minimax criteria or the minimax criterion. So just to recall, the previous decision rule was arrived at, and that was called as the Bayes criterion. So now we discuss the minimax criterion, wherein we discuss how to fix the threshold when the probability of occurrence of the hypothesis is not known. Now to begin with, let us quickly write down the expression for the risk, because it is from this that we have to develop the minimax criteria. So this is the risk which we had been dealing with earlier. Now we observe that this term that you have here, wherein you are calculating the probability of declaring H1 is the true hypothesis and actually H0 was the true hypothesis. This term is actually the probability of false alarm, because you are declaring H1. If you see, you are integrating it in the region designated for H1 in the observation space. So you are basically finding out the probability of the received random vector landing in that region when H0 was the true hypothesis. And whenever you land in that region, you declare H1 is the true hypothesis, and hence this is the probability of a false alarm. Which means that we can replace this with PF. This is the probability of a false alarm. Now, when H0 is the true hypothesis, you either declare it as H0 itself or you declare it as H1. When you declare it as H1, you end up in false alarm, and when you declare it as H0, you are declaring H0 as H0 itself. So there are only two possibilities when H0 is the true hypothesis. You either create a false alarm or you detect it properly. So this being the probability of a false alarm, the probability of detecting H0 as H0 itself, which is given by this integration, becomes 1 minus probability of false alarm. Because as I said, you either create a false alarm or you detect H0 as H0 itself. Now similarly, this is, if you look here, this integration, if you see, this integration is the probability of miss, because you are finding the probability of H0 being declared as the true hypothesis when H1 was the actual true hypothesis. So this is the probability of a miss. And when you have H1 as the true hypothesis, you either miss it or you say H1 is the true hypothesis. This is the probability of that. That in the sense, the probability of declaring H1 as H1 itself. So this becomes 1 minus probability of miss. And further, P0 can be expressed as 1 minus P1. So we are, needless to emphasize that, we are considering a binary hypothesis testing scenario here. So P0 is expressed as 1 minus P1 because P1 plus P0 has to be 1. It is either H1 or H0, right? So now what we have is, we have an expression for the risk, and with this expression for risk, we will see how to proceed when we are not knowing P1. On the other hand, we are aware of the other variables involved. Anyhow, we will discuss that in more detail now. But before that, this expression can be rewritten after some simplification here and there, some rearrangement of terms, which I will not do it here. You can do it on your own. You can rewrite this as equal to C00, maybe I'll start from here. Risk is equal to C00 1 minus PF plus C10 PF plus P1 C11 minus C00 plus C01 minus C11 PM minus C10 minus C00 PF. This becomes we can rewrite the expression like this. And now, if you have observed, I just rewrite here quickly, probability of false alarm is this. And similarly, the probability of miss is integration over Z0 when PR H1, that is integration over Z0 of PR H1, that is the probability of a miss. If you observe it carefully, you can see that probability of false alarm as well as the probability of miss are not dependent on P1 and P0. Of course, when I say it's not dependent on P1, it means it's not dependent on P0 because P0 is 1 minus P1. So probability of miss and probability of false alarm are not dependent on P1 and P0, and they are dependent only on the way you set the threshold. If you vary the threshold, the probability of false alarm and the probability of miss will vary, because varying the threshold is akin to redefining the bifurcation of the observation space into Z1 and Z0. So one particular threshold eta will divide the observation space into a particular Z1 and Z0. If you change that eta, it will again divide it in a different way in Z1 and Z0. So probability of miss and probability of false alarm are only functions of eta, or are only dependent on how you are dividing the observation space into the two decision regions. So that being the case, with PF and PM decided purely on how we arrive at eta, or what is the eta that we have chosen, and the costs being pre-assigned, the costs are always pre-assigned, so the costs are fixed. PF and PM are fixed once we fix eta. Now risk becomes only a function of P1 in this case. So I reiterate, PF and PM are fixed once you fix eta. Cost is already fixed, and now this risk becomes a function of P1 alone, because you don't know what is P1. Right, now this is with this equation for the risk, which is expressed as a function of P1. So now we are able to assess what will be the risk as P1 varies when the cost and the eta is fixed. And when eta is fixed, as I said, PF and PM are fixed. So we'll be able to assess now how the risk will vary as a function of P1, that is as a function of the probability of occurrence of hypothesis H1, when the cost and the probability of false alarm and probability of miss are fixed. So let us do that. And through that exercise, we'll find out how to arrive at eta when P1 is not known. So as we saw just now, the risk as a function of P1 is C001 minus PF plus C10 PF plus P1 the whole multiplied by C11 minus C00 plus C01 minus C11 PM minus C10 minus C00 PF. Okay, now the question is how to fix eta when P1 or equivalently P0 is not known. That is the question. And we know how to fix eta when P1 and P0 are known, and that is the base criterion. So now we are discussing the minimax criterion, wherein we are trying to find out which is the best way, which is the best possible eta when P1 is not known. Okay, now we will consider two specific cases, and from these two specific cases we will generalize something, and then we will arrive at the decision on how to arrive at eta. So case 1, let us assume, remember you don't know P0, P1 of as well as P0, so let us assume that P1 is 0. So we are making an assumption. So we make this assumption and then we will see. We will make various assumptions like this and see which is the best way to arrive at eta. Let us assume P1 is 0. So this is our assumption. We are assuming that P1 is 0 and we are going to go ahead. So when P1 is 0, the threshold will be C10 minus C00 divided by C01 minus C11 into P0 by P1. We know this is the threshold, but since we have assumed P1 is 0, we are assuming that okay, P1 is 0, this threshold becomes infinity. P1 is 0. Eta becomes infinity. So now what we are going to do is we are going to compare the likelihood ratio with infinity, and whenever likelihood ratio is more than infinity, which is never going to happen, we are going to say H1 is the true hypothesis, and whenever the likelihood ratio is less than infinity, which is always going to happen, we are going to say H0 is the true hypothesis. This is definitely not the best way to fix, but we have to go through a few assumptions like this to arrive at which is the best, to understand which is the best assumption. So we have assumed V1 is equal to 0, our threshold has become infinity. Now let us list down here actual P1. Actual P1 can take various values ranging from 0 to 1. We don't know that. So we will list down the actual P1 from 0 to 1 and see what is the risk we are going to encounter. So risk I will write here. So actual P1 and risk. And remember, this is our assumed P1. We have assumed V1 to be like this, and we have set the threshold as infinity. And actual P1 can range from 0 to infinity. Sorry, 0 to 1. So let actual P1 be 0. Let's start with 0. If actual P1 is 0, PF is 0. Of course, V1, before I start this, I can straight away mention, when you have set the threshold as infinity, you are always saying H0 is the true hypothesis, which means that probability of a false alarm is 0, because you are always saying H0 is the true hypothesis, and by definition probability of miss becomes 1. You're going to miss the target because you're always saying H0 is the true hypothesis. So it is definite that you're going to miss the target, and probability of false alarm will be 0 because you're always saying H0 is the true hypothesis. So you'll never have a situation where H0 is the true hypothesis and you're going to say H1 is the true hypothesis. That's a false alarm. So PF is 0, PM is equal to 1. So when actual P1 is 0, we can find out from this expression what is the cost. P1 is 0, which means this entire term vanishes because P1 is 0. And over here we have C00, PF is 0. So C00 into 1 plus C10 into 0, which means the cost is 0, 0. So it makes sense because actual P1 is 0, you have assumed P1 is also 0, so your cost is 0, 0. You are always correct. So cost is C0, 0. Now let the actual P1 be 0.1. Now the actual P1 is different from what you have assumed. Now let's see what is the cost. The actual P1 is 0.1, whereas you have assumed P1 to be 0 and set the threshold. Now the cost will be PF being 0, because PF still remains as 0 because eta is set to infinity. You will never have a false alarm because you will never say H1 is the true hypothesis when H0 is the actual true hypothesis because you're always saying H0. And miss is a definite case because even that 0.1 probability, with a probability of 0.1, you're going to have H1, you're going to miss it. So miss is sure. So that means we will have C00, PF is 0, so C00, this is 0, this is 0, so C00 plus P1 is 0.1, P1 is 0.1 now, and within the brackets you will have C11 minus C00, C11 minus C00, PM is 1, so plus C01 minus C11, and PF is 0. So now if you expand this, you will see that this will be C11 will cancel, and you will have C01 minus C00, C01 minus C00, and that will be this C00 minus 0.1 C00 will give 0.9 C00, it will give 0.9 C00 plus you will get 0.1 C01. This will be more than C00. This will be more than C00 because C01 is the cost for a wrong decision, which will be more than the cost for a correct decision. So this will be more than C00 because C01 is more than C00. This turns out to be more than C00. So the cost, you can clearly see that you have assumed P1 to be 0 and set the threshold. When the actual P1 is different from what you have assumed, you are going to incur more cost. And similarly, for point 2, you can see that the cost will be 0.8 C00 plus 0.2 C01, which will be more than this and more than C00. So you can see this trend continuing, and you can see that when the actual P1 is 1, the actual P1 is 1, because it can go through a range. So when the actual P1 is 1, your cost will be C00 plus P1 is 1 now, you will have C01 minus C00, which will be C01, which will be more than all the previous costs for other values of P1. So you can see that the risk varies from C00 to C01 as the actual probability of hypothesis H1 varies from 0 to 1. When you have assumed the probability of hypothesis H1 as 0 and set the threshold accordingly. Now we can plot this. We can plot this because it is from this plot that we are going to arrive at the decision later. Arrive at a decision on what should be eta. So the plot will be like this. I will plot it here because this region I will use for the next case. I plot it here. So this axis is P1. P1 can range from 0 to 1. And this axis is the risk as a function of P1. This axis is the risk as a function of P1. And as we saw just now, as P1 varies from 0 to 1, as P1 varies from 0 to 1, the cost varies from C00 to cost varies from C00. So this axis is the same. I will write it here to C01. And that variation is a straight line, and you can clearly see it here that it is a straight line variation. This becomes the slope. This is the variable P1, and this becomes the intercept. This is the variation. So understand this figure clearly. This is for case 1. This variation is for case 1, and case 1 refers to a situation where we have assumed P1 as 0 and set the threshold, and the actual P1 varies from 0 to 1. Actual P1 can be anything from 0 to 1. The minimum cost you are going to incur is C00, the minimum risk is C00, and the maximum risk is C01. Now we go to case 2. In case 2 we will take the other extreme. In case 2 we will assume P1 is 1. When P1 is 1, P0 becomes 0 and our threshold is 0. When P1 is 1, P0 becomes 0 and our threshold becomes 0. Now what happens is, again, actual P1 can range from 0 to 1. So we'll take all those values. Actual P1 can go from 0 to 1. And when the threshold is 0, when eta is 0, you are always saying that H1 is the true hypothesis. You are never saying H0 is the true hypothesis because you have assumed P1 is 1. You have set the threshold accordingly. You are always saying H1 is the true hypothesis. When you always say H1 is the true hypothesis, probability of false alarm is 1. Because you are always saying H1 is a true hypothesis, you are definitely going to make a false alarm, create a false alarm. And probability of this is 0 because you are always saying H1 is the true hypothesis. Even if H0 is the true hypothesis, you are saying H1 is the true hypothesis. So probability of false alarm is 1 and probability of this is 0. That's listed right here in the corner. For this case, probability of false alarm is 1, probability of miss is 0. Now let's go through the cost, the risk. When the assumed P1 is 1 and the actual P1 is 0, let us see what is the cost, the risk. Pf being 1, you will have C10 C1 0, and P1 being 0, this entire part will vanish. So the risk is C1 0. Risk is C1 0. Sorry, this is for this, not for 0.1. There is some gap here. And for 0.1, what is the risk? That is, actual P1 is 0.1, assumed P1 is 1. And threshold is set as per the assumed P1. What is the cost now, the risk now, when actual P1 is 0? When actual P1 is 0, PF remains as 1, because as I told earlier, PF and PM never depend on P1. It depends only on the threshold you have set, and that is preset now. So when P1 is 0.1, you will have C10, this term will remain the same because PF is 1, C10 plus 0.1, and then PM is 0, PF is 1, and you will have C00 cancelling off, and you will have C11 minus C10, C11 minus C10, and this will be C10, you can see it will be 0.9 C10 plus 0.1 C11. 0.9 C10 plus 0.1 C11, which will be less than this. It will be less than this because C11 is less than C10. If this were C10, these two would have been equal. Since C11 is less than C10, this as a whole will be less than this. So which means that .9 C10 plus 0.1 C11. This will be less. So you can see the trend is going to be, the risk reduces as the actual probability approaches the one that you have assumed. But remember, actually, we have no control over actual probability. We are just going through the various values and trying to understand how the risk varies. 0.8 C10 plus 0.2 C11, which will be less than the risk here, and which will be less than the risk here. So like this it goes on. Finally, when the actual P1 is 1, you can see that the risk will be C11. The risk will be C11. So you can see that it is decreasing now. So if we plot this variation here, so this is for case 1. I will put a small 1 here to mean it is case 1. Now for case 2, if I plot, it may be something like this. This will be C11. So you can see when P1 is 1, it is C11, and C11 is less than C10. C10 and C01 need not be the same. That's why I have brought a small offset. If they are the same, they will be at the same level. Similarly, C00 and C11 need not be the same generally. So this is the variation. So this is for case 2. Now we can, since we have seen the extremes, we will be able to arrive at a trend. Here we can see a trend here, in the sense, if I had continued to a case 3, suppose I had gone for a case 3 now, wherein I had assumed P1 to be 0.1. So remember, first I assumed P1 is 0, that was case 1. Then I assumed P1 is 1, that was case 2. Now if I assume P1 is 0.1 and call it as case 3, I will be getting a variation like this, roughly like this, where at 0.1 I will have some risk like this, and the risk will vary like this. Similarly, if I had taken a case 4 with P1 as 0.9, I would have got a variation like this. So it is not necessary to show that, but what we have to understand here is that in case 1, this was the maximum risk, because I reiterate, you don't know what is the actual P1. Actual P1 can be 0 to 1. We have assumed P1 to be 0, and the maximum risk you are going to encounter in such cases is C01. In case 2, when you assume the P1 to be 1, the maximum risk you are going to encounter is C10. And in case 3, where you have assumed P1 is 0.1, the maximum risk you are going to encounter is something like this. So now we have to, the only way we can proceed when we do not know the actual P1 is to assume P1 to be that value. So assume P1 to be that for which maximum risk is minimized. So assume P1 to be that for which maximum risk is minimized. So you can see here that if you assume P1 to be 0, this is the maximum risk. If you assume P1 to be 1, this is the maximum risk. If you assume P1 to be 0.1, something like this is the maximum risk. If you had assumed P1 to be 0.9, something like this would have been the maximum risk. So we have to assume P1 to be such that, assume P1 and set a threshold eta such that the maximum risk is minimized. And that is possible when we choose a P1 such that we assume a P1 and set a threshold eta such that if we go through the risk for the range of actual P1s, we will end up getting a variation which is a straight line with slope 0. If you do this, the maximum risk remains the same. You will get the maximum risk to be the smallest, because for assuming probability P1 on this side, we get a variation like this. So maximum risk will be more than this. If you assume P1 to be on the higher side, you are going to get a variation like this. So the maximum risk is this. Whereas if you assume P1 to be such that it is somewhere in this region, you are going to get a variation with respect to P1, actual P1 in the risk like this, and the maximum risk you are going to encounter is less than this as well as this. This range is the maximum risk. Of course, these are all the same risk. So this is the maximum risk you can have when you assume P1 to be on the lower side. If you assume P1 to be on the higher side, you are going to get the same maximum risk. So this is the way you go ahead when you do not have knowledge of P1. Now, how do we do that? We have to make the slope of this 0. We have to make the slope of this 0, and that can be done easily. We can do that easily by setting this as equal to 0. Once you do that, you will know how to set the threshold. So when you set that as equal to 0, you end up getting this, which is called as the minimax equation. And if the situation is such that C11 is equal to C00 equal to 0 and C10 is equal to the cost of a false alarm and C01 is the cost of a miss, then we can write the minimax equation as equal to CMPM is equal to CFPF. So with this equation, we will be able to arrive at the threshold eta. Now, how exactly we do that? We will see that through some solved examples in the next video.